The cafeteria of Orbital Station Velix 9 was loud. Too loud. Species from 17 different worlds gathered under its curved titanium ceiling, their voices overlapping into a discordant symphony that made Vash's ears flatten against his skull. He stood at the entrance, his 7 younger packmates huddled behind him, their amber eyes wide with terror. They were Kithrani, lupin creatures from the forest moon of Reth. Their fur was silver blue, soft as morning mist, and their ears could rotate independently to catch the faintest sound. That sensitivity, so useful in the quiet woods of their homeworld, was now a curse. "I don't want to go in there," whimpered Nira, the smallest of the cubs. She pressed her nose against Vash's leg. Vash understood. He was only 12 cycles old, barely old enough to be considered the eldest, but ever since the evacuation, he had become their leader, their protector. The Kithrani homeworld had been scorched by solar flares, and now they were refugees, waiting for relocation on a station filled with giants and strangers. "We have to eat," Vash said, though his own stomach churned with anxiety. The cubs had refused to enter the cafeteria for 3 days now. They survived on emergency ration bars that tasted like dust and sadness. The station staff had tried everything, dimming lights, reducing noise, offering private dining times, but nothing worked. The cubs simply froze at the threshold, overwhelmed. Vash took one step forward. The roar of conversations hit him like a wave. A Gorvian slammed his massive fist on a table, laughing at some joke. A group of insectoid Chittick clicked their mandibles in rapid-fire discussion. Somewhere, metal trays clattered against the floor. Vash's legs locked. He couldn't move. And then, "Hey there." The voice was soft, impossibly soft. It cut through the noise like a warm blade through ice. Vash looked up. A human woman stood before him. She was small by galactic standards, barely taller than Vash himself, with dark hair pulled back into a messy knot and kind eyes the color of tree bark after rain. She wore the simple gray uniform of station maintenance staff, and there was a smudge of grease on her cheek. Her name tag read, Kalen. "First time in the big scary cafeteria, huh?" Kalen asked. She didn't crouch down to their level, didn't speak in that exaggerated slow tone adults often used with children. She just talked, like they were equals. Vash's ears twitched. "It's too loud." Kalen nodded, as if this were the most reasonable thing in the galaxy. "Yeah, it's awful. I hate it too." She glanced over her shoulder at the chaos, then looked back at the cubs. "Tell you what, I know a spot. Quietest corner in the whole place. Want me to show you?" The cubs exchanged glances. Nira's grip on Vash's leg tightened. "Why would you help us?" Vash asked carefully. Kindness, in his limited experience, usually came with conditions. Kalen shrugged. "Because you look exactly like I felt on my first day here. Alone. Scared. Wishing someone would just sit with me." She smiled, and it was the kind of smile that reached her eyes. "Nobody did. So I figure I can be that person for someone else." Something in Vash's chest loosened. "Okay," he said quietly. Kalen led them through the cafeteria. She walked slowly, positioning her body between the cubs and the loudest tables, creating a small buffer of calm. When a Gorvian's booming laughter made Nira flinch, Kalen simply placed her hand on the cub's shoulder. Gentle, grounding. They reached a corner near the observation window. The stars outside were silent and endless. The acoustics here absorbed most of the noise, creating a pocket of relative peace. "This is where I eat every day," Kalen said, sliding into a seat. She patted the bench beside her. Plenty of room. One by one, the cubs sat down. Vash was the last, still watching Kalen with cautious eyes. But when she pulled out her own meal, some kind of grain bowl with vegetables, and began eating without fuss or ceremony, his suspicion began to melt. For the first time in 3 days, the cubs ate a real meal. It became a ritual. Every day, at the same time, Kalen would appear at the cafeteria entrance. She never made a big show of it. She would simply nod at the cubs, and they would follow her to their corner. She told them stories about Earth, about forests and oceans, and something called snow that sounded like frozen sky water. She taught them a human game called rock, paper, scissors that made the cubs dissolve into giggles. The station staff noticed at first. They were simply relieved that the Kithrani cubs were finally eating. But as the weeks passed, they saw something else. The cubs were thriving. Their fur grew shinier. Their laughter echoed in the halls. Vash, once so rigid and watchful, had started to relax his shoulders, and it was all because of one maintenance worker who had chosen to be kind. The cafeteria manager, a four-armed Theshan named Karath, approached Kalen one afternoon. "We're reserving that table," she said, all four arms gesturing toward the corner. "Permanently. For you and the cubs." Kalen blinked. "You don't have to. It's done." Karatha's voice was firm, but her eyes were soft. "What you've done for those children, it matters. More than you know." Kalen looked over at the table where the cubs were already seated, waving at her with eager paws. Nira had saved her a spot, tail wagging furiously. She smiled. "Thanks," she said quietly. "But honestly, they saved me too." Years later, when Vash had grown tall and strong and led his pack to their new homeworld, he would tell this story to his own cubs. He would describe the roaring cafeteria, the terror that had locked his legs, and the quiet human who had shown him that kindness required no fanfare, only presence. "Humans are strange," Vash would say, his amber eyes distant with memory. "They are small and soft and break so easily, but they carry something inside them that I have never seen in any other species." His cubs would lean forward, eager. "What is it, father?" Vash would smile. "They see the lost, and they sit down beside them.